Mark McGowan wants to halve the number of returned Australians to just over 500 per week. He wants to keep it there after this outbreak. What do you make of that?
Well, I think states should always take the number of people they can so that returning Australians can come home. I've been consistent on this from the beginning of the pandemic, which Australians have a right to return to their country. And when it comes down to deliberately limiting or containing when we could take load from stranded Australians overseas, I think that's irresponsible. There are going to be blips, there are going to be hiccups as we continue both with returning Australians and, of course, the vaccine rollout, but Australians have a right to come home.
This is the second shutdown that's only involved a couple of cases. Does he need to trust his health department and his quarantine system a little more?
Well, they should listen, of course, to their health departments, but risk management means risk management. It doesn't mean risk avoidance. And so what we need is for states to continue to receive Australians home, because if not, we're turning a blind eye to Australians overseas. And the WA has the capacity to be able to take more. They're not arguing they don't have the capacity to take more. They're just simply trying to limit the number they're going to take, and that comes at the expense of Australians.
He makes the point that patient zero was somebody who went from Australia, travelled to India for a wedding, and then returned again. Is that something that at the very least needs addressing?
Well, I don't have those details, so I'm not even prepared to confirm that. The reality is it may very well have been somebody who went to India. The federal government has taken a strong stand around the containing how many people can come back because of the extent of the spread. And the advice has been consistent if you're an Australian to go overseas to only do so if it's absolutely necessary. But I don't know whether there are other reasons they went as well, and whether this is just an attempt to make it about or to try and represent it one way.
India is experiencing the worst surge yet, some 300,000 plus cases for the fourth straight day now. Do you believe that we should suspend all flights from India now?
I think these decisions should be made by competent authorities or on the advice of competent authorities. The Prime Minister has been clear that the risk now from the outbreak in India is so high that there has to be some sort of proportionate response. But this is the critical point in comparison to Western Australia, is it's about a proportionate response, where instead of simply trying to turn away Australians from other countries where the risk may not be proportionate and the impact will be felt by people who have been trying to get home for some time.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we've cut the flights from 30% to 30% though, or from 30%, I should say. But it seems to be getting worse. It's not getting any better in India. So is that something that we should perhaps extend across the board?
Well, this is why it's been a forward leaning into the challenge by making a decision knowing that the situation is not getting better rapidly. Now, I think we should continue to review it and continue to review the situation that international arrivals from India face. But at this point, I think lowering it to make sure we can screen everybody, to make sure that everybody can go through the proper processes, and of course, quarantine will help manage that risk. But of course, we will continue to watch it very carefully and should watch it very carefully. And India isn't the only country we should continue to watch very carefully in case of other outbreaks in other parts of the world.
The Business Council of Australia, just moving on, Tim, wants the childcare subsidy lifted from 85 to 95% for families who earn less than 80 grand. Is that something that should happen?
What we're interested in is outcomes rather than simply dollar figures. Now, these things, of course, will be discussed and considered in the budget. But I think any lobby or interest group that wants additional funding needs to show clear outcomes about how it's going to improve the circumstances for outcomes, first and foremost, for the child and their care. Secondly, that there aren't alternative proposals, because what we know is that the budget is very stretched as a consequence of COVID-19. Other measures around aged care and, of course, and childcare is another one, mental health and the like. So you have to show a clear correlation between greater funding in and outcomes, and I haven't seen that yet from the Business Council.
Okay, but should something happen in this space, though, bearing in mind that there's been no action on paid parental leave for more than a decade?
Well, that will obviously come out in the budget, but I'm sure these things are being actively considered. I mean, what the government wants, and certainly what I want, is to make sure that Australians who work have the opportunity to be able to support their children flexibly within their arrangements, but that doesn't negate responsibility. The foundation of all public policy, from a Liberal perspective, should be around empowering people to take responsibility and how they manage and juggle that, and that includes both supporting their children in a flexible workplace arrangement, but also making sure that employers and employees have the flexibility to support their children on their terms too.